everyone, this is Sally from Sally Smiles Handmade. As you can see, today's project is making these really cool pillows from upcycled men's ties. I'm going to take you through the steps of how I made these. The front is a starburst pattern with rays coming out with 20 different ties on it, piping on the edge. The back I did a log cabin pattern because the pieces were thinner and smaller. So we made two. The client wanted these as a keepsake for an uncle that passed. So I'm really pleased about how they came out. And I'd like to show you how it was done. So come on, come sew with me. Alright, so before we start, we're going to have to do a bit of prep work. This is muslin that I had, and I'm going to use this as my foundation to build upon. I'm going to iron this, and then with this fusible Pellon, I've used this before on t-shirts and it worked pretty good for me. This is a 911FF fusible Pellon. And I am going to cut this into 18 by 18 squares. Our pillow forms that we're going to use, the client picked 16 by 16. I got these at Joann's. I caught a sale, which was nice. So since we want to end up with 16 by 16 pillows, I am going to make 17 by 17 finished square blocks so that I'll have a 1/2 inch seam on both sides. So I am going to cut this at 18 by 18. I'm going to iron this and fuse this on, and it's going to be our foundation for almost like a paper piecing thing that we're going to do with the ties. Alright, so the Pellon is fused to the back. It's ironed very flat. And you can see what I did. I measured out 16 by 16 square, marked it with a pencil, gave myself a 1/2 inch seam on all sides, and then I cut it into quadrants. So these each would be 8 by 8. And these are my guidelines that I'm going to use to sew with. After I did this, I made a circle in the middle. The middle, I'm imagining, is going to end up very messy, so I'm going to cover it to make it neater with some kind of an applique. I'm thinking about maybe an octagon. The client had chosen a specific tie that was a favorite that she wants me to accent, so I'm probably going to use that for the center. And then this is the pattern that the client chose, kind of like a starburst effect. So I made all rays into the center evenly with a pencil, and this is going to be the pattern on which I do paper piecing. So before I do anything else, even though it's tedious, I'm going to actually sew all these lines with a basting stitch on the machine, so that I have these lines on both sides to be as guides to when I actually put the tie material onto here. Like I said, it's tedious, but it's well worth it because it'll keep me on track and keep me exact, keep my lines nice and straight. Our foundation piece is completely prepped. You can see now I've got defined lines on the front and the back. And now we've got to prep the ties. So we have a really nice selection of ties. What I did is I separated them, trying to put alike colors together. and I'm going to make it like a color wheel. So now all these ties, I did rinse them with OxyClean, and now I've got to take them apart, flatten them out, and I'm also going to put the interfacing on these. So the first wedge is sewn down. I pinned it in place, and then I sewed it from the back, following the lines that I had already laid out for myself by sewing over the marks I made. And that's the first wedge. And now I'm going to continue around by placing the next piece, sewing it, turning it, pressing it, and then sewing it on this side, working my way all the way around the color wheel I'm making. I finished the first quarter, or the first quadrant, like I've been calling it, with 5 different colors, like wedges. And now I think I'm going to put on these center wedges and then fill in both sides and work my way around to complete this block. This is our finished block. It measures 17 by 17. I sewed the back, so I've got a clean edge to work with. So now I've got to make some backing to it before we connect the 2 pieces to make it kind of into a pillowcase. So we have to figure out what we're going to do with the back of the pillow. We can't do the same exact design because my pieces aren't big enough. I used the good bits for the wedges that I made for the front. So now, since I've got thinner pieces, I was working on a design something like this, like a log cabin, where we'll just start with a square in the middle and keep building on it until we get around to the end. So I think this is the pattern I'm going to go with. What I'm going to do is transfer this to a piece of muslin that I've backed with the pellon, and then do the same technique of almost like a paper piecing technique to fill out the back of the pillow. I'll show you the completed transfer of the pattern after I've got it done. Alright, I drew out the pattern on the muslin, and if you could see, we're going to do a 4-inch square in the middle. And then starting here, we're going to do 1-inch strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, going around. When we get to here, we're going to change the strips to 1.5 inch. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then when we get to the last row, we're going to go to 2.5 for 13, 14, 15, 16 strips. And that's our pattern. So now let me prep the ties and we'll start sewing. Can you see we're well on our way? I put down the center square and I went once around. I still have to iron it down. But then I intend to just keep building all the way around with the strips until we get this side of the block done. Looks good, no? right, so look at this. It came out really nice, didn't it? This is going to be the front with the one that has the starburst effect with the rays. And this is going to be the back that I pieced together with the extras. I did kind of like a log cabin. So these are finished. What I think I want to do now is put a piping border before I connect them up. I've got this black satiny type, so I think a frame of this will really make the rest of it pop. I've got this cording, so I'm going to make my own piping and put it around the edge before I put the two pieces together and get it ready to stuff. So, looks good, no? Here's the finished pillows. Can't wait to give them to the client. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. See you next time.